Have you ever wondered why there are women you simply cannot forget? Women who leave, not with rage, nor with thunder, but with the silent closing of a door. And yet, their absence haunts you louder than their presence ever did. Some women do not burn bridges. They vanish in a way that leaves you endlessly searching for the version of yourself you lost when they walked away. It is not merely memory that keeps them alive. It is the fracture they leave behind. The human psyche, as Carl Jung so ruthlessly explained, does not grieve only people. It grieves the collapse of the projections we built upon them. And a man, when stripped of his projection, does not simply mourn her. He mourns himself. There is a particular ache when the woman who walked away is not forgotten. It is not because she was flawless, not because she was irreplaceable in the ordinary sense. It is because she became the mirror of his unconscious, the vessel where he unknowingly stored his lost parts. She became the container for his anima, the sacred feminine that he abandoned within himself. When she leaves, she does not just take her laughter, her touch, or her gaze. She takes the scaffolding that held up his illusion. The illusion that he was whole, because she was there to reflect it back to him. Men often speak of unforgettable women as though they are mysteries wrapped in silk, as though their memory lingers because of some intoxicating magic. But the deeper truth, the Jungian truth, is far less romantic and far more brutal. You cannot forget the woman who walked away because you made her responsible for carrying the weight of the parts you refuse to own. And when she leaves, those disowned pieces come crashing back. There is a torment in this, an almost unbearable dissonance. The man is left circling the ruins of his old self, scavenging for meaning, reaching for another to rebuild the projection, hoping to find a woman who will speak in the same cadence, who will mirror the same missing parts. But it never fits again. Because no two women can carry the same projection, no two souls can inhabit the same carefully constructed illusion. This is why her ghost remains, not as a punishment, but as a call to retrieve what he placed in her hands, a call to begin the arduous, sacred work of individuation. Some men will fight this call. They will run, they will drown themselves in noise, in other bodies, in ambition, believing that time will dissolve the ache. But time is no solvent for psychological projection. Time merely circles the wound. It is consciousness that breaks it open. And you, perhaps you have circled this wound. Perhaps you have felt the strange, hollow pulse that follows you into new relationships, the subtle way your heart strains to recreate a feeling that slipped away the moment she did. Perhaps you have already realized that forgetting her is not possible, because what you are truly forgetting is yourself. The woman who walks away without drama leaves something far more destructive than those who scream and shatter. She leaves a silence, a void, a space where his shadow begins to rise. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is everything we refuse to see in ourselves, everything we exile to the depths. And when the woman who once held that shadow departs, the man is left to face it naked, raw, untethered. What torments him is not her physical absence. It is the return of the parts he abandoned. It is the echo of his own unlived life. The woman's absence forces him to confront the scaffolding of his identity. Who is he when he is not being reflected in her eyes? Who is he when the story he built around her no longer holds? The forgetting becomes impossible, because forgetting her would mean forgetting the version of himself she awakened. Some women enter your life like fire, some like water. But there are women who arrive like a mirror. And when the mirror walks away, you are left chasing your own reflection. And you may have chased it. You may have thought you were chasing her. But what you were really chasing was the feeling of being whole. The brutal truth is this. No woman can complete a man. No man can complete a woman. They can only awaken the parts we have buried. They can only stand as catalysts for the journey we must walk alone. Her walking away was not a theft. It was a release. But only the man who dares to stand in the silence will see it. Some men will spend years believing they are missing her, when in truth, they are missing the version of themselves they glimpsed in her presence. She became the container for his tenderness, the sanctuary for his suppressed longing, the voice for his unspoken desires. When she walked away, she did not just leave him. She returned his own unconscious to his doorstep, demanding he carry what he once placed in her fragile hands. And so, the ache remains. It lingers not because of her scent, her laughter, her stories, but because of the sacred architecture she unknowingly held. She was not the source of his wholeness, but she carried the illusion of it. And when she withdrew, the scaffolding collapsed. Carl Jung would whisper from the depths of the psyche, "It is not the woman you chase, but the anima you have disowned." You cannot forget the woman who walked away because she was never merely a person to you. She was the symbol, the projection, the bridge to the unloved parts of yourself. And so you return to her memory, again and again, not because you need her, but because you need what she represented. Most men will try to replace her with another. They will search for women who speak her words, wear her scent, laugh in a familiar rhythm. But none will fully satisfy. Because they are not chasing a person, they are chasing their own reflection. It is a bitter thing to realize. It is not her absence that haunts you. It is the hollow within you that has always been there. You may have convinced yourself that if she had stayed, you would have remained whole. But that is the illusion the ego clings to when it is afraid to face its own incompleteness. She left because she was never meant to be the carrier of your unlived life. There is a sacred violence in her walking away. It cuts through the fantasy. It forces you to stand alone in the raw, unfiltered truth. No one is coming to carry your shadow for you. The woman who left you in silence left you with the key to the very prison you built. Some men will drown in the emptiness she leaves behind. They will call her cruel. They will say she was too cold, too distant, too ungrateful. But their rage is a shield, a desperate attempt to protect themselves from the terrifying realization that she was never the architect of their ache. Others, the ones who choose the path of awakening, will bow before the silence. They will let it engulf them. They will sit within the ruin of their own projections and finally, painfully, begin to rebuild from within. This is the alchemy Carl Jung speaks of, the sacred fire of transformation, the dissolution of false selves, the painful, necessary death of the man who was constructed for approval, for attachment, for safety. The woman who walked away becomes unforgettable not because she remains a ghost in his mind, but because she initiated his rebirth. And you, perhaps you have felt this fire. Perhaps you have wandered through your own wreckage, believing you were searching for her, when you were really searching for the man you abandoned long before she entered your life. Or perhaps you are the woman, the one who left, not in cruelty, but in quiet self-preservation. The one who grew weary of carrying what was never yours. The one who realized that no matter how much you stayed, no matter how deeply you loved, you could never complete what another refuses to build within themselves. There is a sacred kind of departure, a walking away that speaks louder than any final word. It is not a punishment. It is a release. It is a reclaiming of your own life, your own time, your own becoming. The man who watches her walk away is faced with a choice: drown in the longing or rise through the silence. Some will try to resurrect her in other bodies. Some will try to outrun the ache. Some will stay busy enough to never hear the echo. But some, the few, will remain in the fire long enough to see the silhouette of their true self begin to emerge. The forgetting becomes impossible because her departure burned away the illusion. And now, he is faced with the most dangerous question of all: who am I? Without the story I built around her, the question lingers like smoke in an empty room. Not who she was, but who he became in her absence. Because when she left, she didn't just walk out of his life. She walked out of the narrative he clung to, the story in which she was cast as the remedy, the salvation, the soothing balm for the ache he refused to meet within himself. And now the ache stands before him, unmasked, unavoidable. Carl Jung spoke of the anima not as a woman to be possessed, but as the man's own inner feminine, the door to his soul. But most men never see it. They look outward. They build monuments to their longing. They craft entire identities around the pursuit of the woman who carries their disowned self. They confuse love with projection. They confuse closeness with possession. They mistake silence for betrayal, when it is often the greatest offering a woman can leave behind. For the woman who walks away in silence leaves something no other can offer: the invitation to stand alone in the hollow space, to hear the echo of your own unfinished becoming. The man who cannot forget her is not obsessed with her. He is obsessed with the version of himself she reflected back to him. The tender, the open, the emotionally raw self he dared to express only through her gaze. When she leaves, that gaze disappears. And so does the man he believed himself to be. He will search, desperately, to resurrect that version. He will look for another woman to mirror his softness, to awaken the parts he has still not learned to hold. But the search will fail, because the gaze he longs for can no longer come from another. It must now rise from within. The woman who walked away was never his completion. She was his mirror. She was the voice that spoke the words he could not say to himself. She was the space where his forgotten tenderness could safely live. And now she is gone. Some men will spend lifetimes fighting this loss. They will rage against the silence, cling to memory, chase phantoms. They will search for her in every new lover, believing that the next touch, the next smile, the next heartbeat will finally return him to that fleeting sense of wholeness. But others, the rare ones, will allow the silence to speak. Because the silence is not empty. The silence is a teacher. The silence is the crucible. Within it, the man begins to realize that the wholeness he craved through her was always his own to retrieve. No one can hold the weight of your unlived life. No woman can carry the parts of you that you refuse to see. The brutal beauty is this. The woman who walked away, the woman you cannot forget, is the one who returned your forgotten self back to your own hands. Her absence is not a wound. Her absence is an opening. And you, perhaps you have sat in this ache, believing you were mourning her, only to discover you were mourning the comfort of not having to face yourself. Perhaps you have spent years circling the same longing, mistaking it for love, when it was really the echo of your own neglected soul. The forgetting is impossible because what you are really remembering is the man you were only brave enough to be when she was present. Carl Jung wrote that the unconscious will rise again and again until it is made conscious. And the woman who walked away becomes the vessel through which the unconscious demands your attention. She is unforgettable because she became the key to the very parts of you that you exiled. And now, the question hangs in the air. Will you chase her shadow forever, or will you turn toward yourself? Some men will try to replace her. Some will try to erase her. But the man who chooses to listen, who chooses to sit within the hollow she left behind, will find that the ache is not a curse. It is a compass. It points not to her, but to the path back to himself. The forgetting was never the purpose. The purpose was to remember who you were before you scattered your worth into the hands of others. The forgetting was never meant to be the goal. The ache she leaves behind is not a flaw in your memory, not a fault in your will. It is a sacred design, a pull, a relentless tug toward the wholeness you once outsourced to her reflection. The ache insists, because the soul refuses to be abandoned. The man who cannot forget the woman who walked away is not weak. He is unfinished. He has not yet crossed the threshold. He has not yet gathered the scattered fragments of his inner life. He is still searching for her in doorways, in strangers' eyes, in passing gestures, mistaking the familiar ache as proof that she was the one. But Carl Jung's wisdom cuts through this illusion like a blade. She was never the destination. She was the mirror, the gate, the spark. It is not her you are chasing. It is the man you glimpsed when you stood next to her. You remember her because you remember yourself through her. And that is why no new embrace feels the same. That is why her absence echoes even in the arms of others. Because what you are truly aching for is the tender self you buried the moment she stepped away. Most men collapse under this truth. They tether their longing to her, forever trapped in a loop of nostalgia and regret. They refuse to believe that the memory of her is not an external ghost. It is an internal summons. And you, perhaps you have spent years believing that the ache will dissolve when you meet someone new. Perhaps you have promised yourself that the next connection, the next moment, the next woman will finally soothe the wound. But there is no soothing until there is reckoning. The woman who walked away becomes unforgettable because she forced you to confront the parts of yourself you never claimed. She forced you to stare into the raw, unfinished man that you abandoned the moment you believed love would save you from doing the work. She did not abandon you. She returned you to yourself. Her silence, her absence, her walking away, it was not a punishment. It was the most honest offering she could leave. Because had she stayed, you would have continued outsourcing your becoming. You would have continued leaning on her to carry your softness, to bear your grief, to mother your unmet needs. Her departure was the shattering of the illusion. It was the call to finally hold yourself. And some men will ignore the call. They will spiral through relationships, through fleeting comforts, through shallow intimacy, trying to reconstruct what was never meant to be repeated. But others, the ones who choose to face the silence, will begin the brutal work of retrieval. They will sift through the rubble of their projections, gathering the sacred pieces, realizing that what they truly cannot forget is not her, but the opportunity she offered to become whole. The woman who leaves without rage leaves you with responsibility. The responsibility to no longer scatter yourself into someone else's hands. The responsibility to no longer chase the anima outside of yourself. Carl Jung teaches that the journey toward individuation is the reconciliation of opposites, the union of the masculine and feminine within. The woman you cannot forget was the invitation to that union. You do not forget her because she awoke something you still refuse to fully claim. And you, perhaps you are now standing at the edge of this truth, the weight of it pressing into your ribs, the ache that refuses to release you because you have not yet walked through it. Perhaps you are finally realizing that forgetting her was never the medicine. The medicine is in remembering yourself. Some will run from this. Some will drown it in distraction. But the few who stand still long enough will find that the silence she left behind becomes a sanctuary, not a prison. You will find that you were never mourning her. You were mourning the man you abandoned when you chose to believe that love could complete you instead of awaken you. The forgetting is impossible because her leaving marked the beginning of your return. The memory persists because you have not yet crossed fully into yourself. The ache that remains is not a wound to be sutured. It is a doorway, a threshold between the man you once were and the man you are called to become. Most will never step through it. They will cling to the memory of her as if it were a life raft, mistaking attachment for devotion, mistaking longing for love. But longing is not love. Longing is the echo of your own disconnection. The woman who walked away is not unforgettable because of her body, her voice, or even her soul. She is unforgettable because she became the stage upon which your deepest unconscious played its drama. She was the screen upon which you projected your anima, your lost inner feminine, the part of you that holds tenderness, vulnerability, emotional fluency. When she left, the projection shattered. And you are not grieving her. You are grieving the collapse of the man you imagined you were when she stood beside you. Carl Jung would have whispered, without hesitation, that the woman you cannot forget is the woman who forced you to meet the shadow you have long evaded. You miss her because you miss the soft places she made you feel safe to inhabit. You miss the reflection of yourself that she gently mirrored back to you, the man you only dared to be in her presence. But this is not a story about her. It never was. She was the gateway, not the destination. The ache is your compass. The memory is your guide. The forgetting is impossible because her departure demanded your evolution. And you may have realized by now that the more you chase her memory, the more elusive it becomes. Like grasping water, like catching fog. Because what you are truly chasing is not her, but the echo of the man you hoped to find in her gaze. Some will build their lives around this ghost, folding her into every love song, every lover, every silent midnight reflection. They will craft stories of missed chances, of cruel timing, of cosmic misalignment. But the brutal truth is simpler than fate and sharper than destiny. She left because she was never meant to carry you across the threshold of your own becoming. No woman is meant to bear that burden. It is a sacred solitude that no one else can traverse for you. The woman who walked away, the woman you cannot forget, is not a punishment. You must hear this. She is your summons. Her leaving was the final offering. The moment she stepped out of your life, she placed your fragmented self back into your trembling hands. Some will spend decades trying to escape this. They will call it heartbreak. They will call it betrayal. They will write her into tragedy. But some, the rare, the fierce, the awake, will choose to face the silence. They will stop chasing. They will stop running. They will sit within the echo and let it hollow them out until there is nothing left but their own untouched self. And from that hollow, a man is born, not the man who is addicted to her reflection, but the man who carries his own anima with reverence. He will no longer beg another to hold his tenderness. He will no longer search for his softness in borrowed hearts. He will become the container. And the woman, the one who walked away, she will remain unforgettable, not as an idol, not as a fantasy, but as the catalyst for his return. You must understand this. She did not leave you empty. She left you open. The man who rises from this will not look for her in other faces. He will look for himself in his own reflection. Some women are meant to stay. Some women are meant to awaken. She was the latter. And you who cannot forget, perhaps you are standing now in the fire, thinking it is burning you alive, but it is not. It is burning away everything that was false. This is the alchemy of memory. This is the crucible of love that awakens, not completes. There is no forgetting because there is nothing to forget. There is only the choice to return. To yourself, to your own softness, to the sacred ground you once asked her to carry. Some men will chase shadows forever, but others will choose to stand still. And when they do, they will see the truth. The woman who walked away was never the story of loss. She was the story of beginning. The story was never about her absence. It was always about your awakening. When she walked away, she did not close a chapter. She opened a door. A door few are brave enough to walk through. A door that leads not to another lover, not to another fleeting connection, but to the self that waits beneath all the projections, all the performances, all the desperate reaching for completion outside of yourself. Carl Jung would have called this the sacred turning inward, the confrontation with the shadow, the reconciliation of the inner masculine and feminine, the step toward individuation. It is the path no man can walk for another, and no woman can soften by her staying. The unforgettable woman is not unforgettable because of her beauty, her kindness, or her absence. She is unforgettable because she shattered the scaffolding that held up your false self. She was the match. She was the mirror. She was the spark that set fire to the story you built about who you were allowed to be. And when the story burned, you mistook the ashes for grief. But it was never grief. It was the shedding of a skin that was too small for the man you are meant to become. Some men will spend their lives resenting the woman who left. They will call her names in the privacy of their hearts. They will brand her selfish, cold, ungrateful. They will decorate their memories with bitterness, because bitterness feels safer than vulnerability. But the ones who choose to stay in the ache long enough to let it speak, those men will see her departure for what it was, a sacred betrayal. The kind of betrayal that does not destroy, but awakens. The kind that burns illusions, not souls. She did not walk away to punish you. She walked away to free you from the dependency, from the story, from the comfortable prison where you outsourced your worth to her presence. And you who still remember her, you who feel the sting of her absence, you may be standing now in the rubble, believing that you have been abandoned. But you have not been abandoned. You have been returned. Return to yourself. Return to the silence that waits for you to build a foundation from within, not from the hands of another. Most will not take this path. Most will search for someone else to silence the ache. They will collect lovers like medicine, unaware that the ache is not to be silenced. It is to be listened to. It is calling you to reclaim your own softness, your own tenderness, your own capacity to hold what you once begged another to carry. Carl Jung's brutal truth is this: love is not about completion. Love is about awakening. And often, the most powerful awakenings come wrapped in the agony of losing what we thought we could not live without. The woman you cannot forget was never meant to be the one you kept. She was the one who cracked you open. The forgetting was never the path. The forgetting would have robbed you of the fire, the growth, the sacred invitation to step fully into your own becoming. And the man who dares to walk this path, the man who dares to sit in the silence without distraction, will come to see that the woman who left was not the tragedy. She was the teacher. You do not need to chase her. You do not need to replace her. You do not need to erase her. You need to honor what she awoke within you. Some women do not enter your life to stay. They enter to ignite. And when they leave behind a trail of embers. You can try to stomp them out. You can drown them in distraction. Or you can kneel before the fire and let it forge you. The choice has always been yours. The forgetting is impossible because she was never meant to be forgotten. She was the beginning of your return. And in time, when you have gathered the lost pieces of yourself, when you have built your own container, when you have become the man who holds his own tenderness with reverence, you will see her memory not with longing, but with gratitude. Because the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses.